guys, basically have signed three today and expect to sign potentially maybe one more. That's kind of where this thing goes, and we'll let it play out through the day. But feel good about the potential addition of one other to the class. So, as we talked about before, the February 3rd or the first Wednesday in February is much different now than it used to be. And this used to be a day where, you'd stand up here and you'd sign 25 players or whatever the case may be, and then recruiting was closed. As of, the way things exist these days, recruiting's really year-round. And so, as everybody knows, we signed a big group in December. We added 9 players over over the break, and have signed 3 more as of today. So we got a lot of new faces. Expect to have more as we transition, into next fall. So I would expect, another 8 to 10 players to be added between now and by the time we take the field in September. So as I said earlier, it's kind of a strange signing day. It's different than it used to be, and we'll add players to our roster again, really all the way up until August and potentially even until September. And that's just the way college football recruiting goes these days. But I'm really excited about these guys. I want to talk about a couple of them. Obviously DJ Allen is a headliner. Wide receiver from Gladewater was committed here, before we got here. He was one of those guys that did a great job of just saying, hey, look, I want to be patient. I want to get to know the new coaching staff and their vision for me. Retaining Malcolm Kelly as a wide receiver coach was really important to getting DJ to sign with us. I think he and Malcolm had a very good relationship. Malcolm does a really nice job of recruiting. I think DJ and his family are very comfortable with Malcolm and the vision that we have for DJ in our program, and he's a heck of a football player. He's explosive, he's fast, he's physical, very productive, played a lot of different positions, can do a lot of different things, and, we expect him to run really good track and field times this year. He's run them in the past. Just an outstanding athlete and a guy that can do a lot of different things for us. So really excited about him. It's interesting, we went and did a home visit with DJ last week, and, says he's 5'11". I'm guessing he's more 6 foot and maybe 6.5 foot at this stage. He's a guy that's really honestly has grown a little bit since I first met him, and, expect him to continue to get bigger, and really excited about him. Ronald Lewis is a corner that we signed from Warren Easton High School, which is in New Orleans. Warren's very, very productive. I believe early in the recruiting process, I think at one point he was committed to the University of Texas. Just a very long, athletic kid that makes a lot of plays on film. Really nice young man when we got to know he and his family. Again, we'll run track. I think we'll have a chance to compete at a very high level in the state of Louisiana, both in the 110 hurdles and the 300 hurdles. Expect him to do very, very well in those races. He's got a lot of upside. I think he's a guy that, as I said earlier, is long, makes a lot of plays. Excited about his potential. And then Lawal is a player that we signed that played at UConn. Signed a scholarship agreement with us, and that's why we can comment on him. He's a transfer that has signed a scholarship agreement. Again, productive, has played a lot of football. That's a position I think coming into signing day we felt like we needed to address was depth on the defensive front and experience on the defensive front. And he's played in 34 games, has been productive, has got good size, good length, really good young man. Was really impressed with him when I had a chance to get around him on his recruiting visit. Very smart, very articulate, just a guy that's, I think will be a really good influence on our team. He's got 1 year of eligibility. And so, I think he'll give us some depth at that defensive, on our defensive line. I think he can play a variety of positions for us up front. And so, excited to see where he fits and what he can do. As I said earlier, I think he'll adjust quickly. A very bright guy, and really, really excited about him. So it's kind of, as I said, it's kind of uneventful in some ways. Like I said, we're waiting on one more. Feel pretty good about the possibility of it going our way down the stretch. But excited about this group that we signed today. As you can see on the sheet here that you have, we also have a lot of newcomers that we've added to the roster over the break. We hosted a lot of recruits. There's an interesting rule in the NCAA that allows players to take official visits, transfers, a week before they enroll in the university. And so we started school really early, so we had a number of those kids that came up on both unofficials and official visits that week, and we're able to sign some really good players and some guys that we're excited about, and gave us depth, particularly in some positions of need. So, again, really feel good about the newcomers that we've added to our football team, excited about the future. As I said earlier, I expect to add anywhere between 8 and 12 more, depending on what happens with our numbers as we go along. But a really good group, and a group that we're all excited about. Look forward to watching those guys develop and become really productive players for us. Yeah, we've said this before, but it's true. I mean, recruiting is really about relationships, and it's about trust, and so what happens is when you hire a coach, it's like anything else, they have a reputation, okay, and they have a reputation with high school coaches, they have a reputation with players at previous institutions who talk to players at other institutions, and so on, and so. When you hire guys that are good guys and have a good reputation, and and are trustworthy, and again have done this for a while, they have a reputation, and so what happens is high school coaches, junior college coaches, people that have influence on these players, they will listen to those coaches that have those relationships, and so I was really impressed with that. I mean, I think our staff, I think we have a really, really good coaching staff. I think we have some elite level recruiters on our staff. That's a big part of today's world, as you all know, is recruiting. It goes back to what we say all the time. You have acquisition of talent, you have player development, you have culture, are really the three things that are going to make you successful or not successful. And you better be able to acquire talent, whether it's coaches or players in this regard. So. I was impressed with our guys. Thought we did a good job. I think that we were impressed with TCU. Just as an asset to sell. I think that carries a lot of weight. I think TCU's got a great reputation in the college football world. I think when we get guys on our campus, the campus environment, the university, the infrastructure, the investment. All those things are pretty clear, and that certainly resonates with folks when they get on campus. And so, the thing that we want to try to do when a young man comes on our campus, we want him to see what we're all about. And we hope that when they leave here, they say, wow, that was something different, that was something unique. Those guys, were different than maybe some other staffs that recruit people. And so, I was impressed. I was impressed with what we were able to do. I mean, there's always one or two guys that you go, wish we could have got him, wish we could have got him. But that's what's great about the world now, the recruiting world, the world of the transfer portal, is if you miss on one or two, chances are you're going to upgrade. Whereas in the past, if you missed on signing day, all of a sudden you were in a bind. Now we have a lot of time to, number one, figure out what do we have currently on our roster. And number two, how can we address those needs that we need to address with another wave of transfers that'll take place, in May and June and July and really August for that matter.
How hard is it to assess where you are not having, you've seen film, obviously, you've seen them work
Right.
to know exactly what you're needing for it.
You know, certainly it's not it's not a perfect situation from that regard. You know, there is obviously some familiarity between, you know, where we were and where we are in terms of playing against TCU in the past. Um, you know, and just having an overall feel for the program. You know, because the thing about recruiting, it's really interesting. You know, it's really easy to turn on the film and go, "Wow, this guy's a really good player." You know what I mean? I think all of us in this room can do that. You know, and watch a highlight film and go, "Wow, this guy looks really good." The hard part is figuring out all the other things that are really important. You know, what kind of teammate is this guy going to be? You know, what's this guy's work ethic going to be? How is he tapped out, or does he have potential to continue to improve? You know, what kind of student is he going to be? You know, all these things that really truly matter, because all that factors into your program. And like I said, the easy parts, in a lot of ways, is the evaluation of how do they play once the ball is snapped. But all the other stuff is just as important. And you have to have a college football team, a college football staff, all that's made up of so many different pieces that you have to have guys in different roles. And you know, and you can't really see how they fit in those roles when the film's running, because there's so much more that needs to be assessed and evaluated. And so that's equally as important.
So I know early signing day, you said you guys don't want to reach for anyone. I think you're ranked like 55th in the country. Do you read much into that, or did you guys acquire?
No. I think, look, if we went out and signed, you know, 27 high school kids or 25 high school kids, I think this recruiting class would be ranked really high. You know what I mean? But we're going to do what we think is the best thing for our program. You know, the one thing that we want to always do is you know, be ranked in December and January as opposed to being ranked in February. Now, those two things go hand in hand. Don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of ways to add talent to your football team. You know, a lot of these guys that we're talking about here, you know, you get no credit for signing them when it comes to recruiting rankings. And so when you sit down and you factor all the new additions we have to our program, a lot of these guys are on our campus right now working out. You know, we've had a chance to see them up close and personal. You know, I feel really good about this group. I think we've added some really good athletes. I think we've added some guys that are going to help us from a leadership point of view and perspective. And so when you just sit down and look at the list, you know, you can't help but get excited about what kind of guys these are and what they're going to do for our program. You know, as I said, I think I hate to burst anybody's bubble, but I think the recruiting rankings in today's world are really insignificant because of, you know, again, they don't take into account these other guys, you know, which again are going to make up the bulk of this team this year. I'm not saying that's going to be the case moving forward, but that's certainly the way it's going to be this year.
Coach, you mentioned Malcolm Kelly already as far as recruiting goes, but how important have he and Paul Gonzalez been for you as far as the transition?
Yeah, you know, they've been really valuable. Doug Meacham as well. You know, Matt Lewis has been really valuable as well. I mean, there's been some guys that you know, we've had an opportunity. I had an opportunity to be around, you know, Paul, you know, when I was here before. Knew Doug just kind of through the coaching profession, you know, and kind of knew Malcolm by reputation. And so, you know, those guys have been invaluable, really, just in terms of helping us recruit, but also, too, just, you know, giving us some perspective on the way things were and you know, just information and ways to improve things. And, you know, those guys are all excellent football coaches, all really good recruiters, work really hard. They're great team guys. And, you know, and their perspectives been really invaluable on a lot of different ways. You know, a lot of the things from an operations standpoint, you know, Matt Lewis, I mean, it's hard to put a value on what he's meant to us just in terms of being able to get here and get on the ground and get running fast because that's what you have to do.
Moving forward, balance between relying on the transfer portal and using it to your benefit?
Yeah, you know, man, everybody's still trying to figure out the transfer portal to a degree. You know, we have a philosophy when it comes to how we want to try to build our program here, and it's kind of a long-term philosophy that we want to address. And I think that the number one thing that we want to do is build a really good culture, okay? If you build a really good culture within your program, then you don't have that many players that want to leave, because they say, wow, I really like TCU, okay? I like my life here. I like my classes. I like my professors. I like my teammates. I love Fort Worth. All of those things make a difference, and they're all very important. And just a quality of life perspective. That stuff matters. The second thing is the football part of it is obviously there's a lot of things to consider when it comes to that. Playing time, how do I fit in the scheme, all those different things. But I think it comes back to what we talked about. It's recruiting your own players, and the way you recruit your own players is the same way you recruit high school or junior college or transfer players, is by developing a relationship with them and establishing trust. Okay, and so that's the first step, really, is getting to know your players, getting them, making sure that they understand, look, you have their best interest at heart, not only as a player, but as a person off the field, all those things. And when you create that kind of culture, then what you have is you don't have that many transfers, okay? So when you don't have many transfers, then that gives you an ability to project what your roster is going to look like, okay? Now, there's always going to be some. That's just the way it is. There's going to be a quarterback that loses a quarterback competition that wants to move on. There's going to be a junior that gets beat out by a true freshman that says, hey, look, I'm not going to be able to play. Those guys may decide to move on, et cetera, but I don't think you're going to have a lot of widespread kids leaving your program, okay? And I think that's where it begins. That's first and foremost. Then the second thing is, okay, how do we want to manage that when it does happen, okay? And so obviously when there's a coaching transition, typically there is a decent number of transfers, which we've had some of those. And what we have to do now is we have to look at the way our roster stacks up, the way it looks by class, by position, all those different things, and then we have to make sure that we address the roster the best that we can. And again, in a perfect world, you're going to have 20 seniors, or 15 seniors, 20 juniors, 20 sophomores, 20 freshmen, kind of build the thing from there, and then incoming guys on top of that. So that's kind of what you would expect to see and what you want, and that's the way you're trying to build your roster. And then what we're trying to do, it's like anything else. When you lose a couple of players, we got hit pretty hard transfer-wise with D linemen. So now we have to go out and we have to find some D linemen that we feel like can come in, that have the size, the ability to play early, the experience to play early, and the wherewithal to play early and fit our scheme. And so that's kind of the way that thing takes place. No, look, I mean, we're every single day for the rest of my tenure at TCU, we're going to be trying to add a defensive lineman or a corner or somebody like that. I mean, there's no, we're never going to be satisfied with those guys. I mean, it's just not the way it works. We laugh about it all the time. I always ask our coaches, when's the last time we came in and said, wow, what are we going to do with all these D tackles? We just have way too many guys. It's just nobody in football has ever said that at any level. And so, that's the way it is. I mean, D linemen are hard to find. Corners are hard to find. Offensive linemen are hard to find. Same thing. I've never seen a coach go, say, hey, man, we got 7 offensive tackles. What are we going to do with all these guys? It's just not the way it is. So we're always looking to add to the roster. Same thing. I think that for us, we had some kids that reached out to us that were interested in coming. I think that they had seen the success that we had in the past potentially with some of the transfer quarterbacks, going all the way back to my tenure as the offensive coordinator at Arizona with Nick Foles as a transfer to, Davis Webb at Cal, to obviously the guys that we had at SMU, and so I think people were interested in saying, hey, look, they've done well with transfer quarterbacks in the past. It's a quarterback-friendly offense. There's a good supporting cast. We engaged with some guys, and went down the road a little bit. It's like anything else. You kind of get to know them. Are they a good fit? Then you make decisions as you go along. They were doing the same thing with us, evaluating us, and we were evaluating them and seeing whether or not we thought it was the kind of person we wanted to bring into our program. And so, like anything else, we're always looking to add a player. The good thing is, at this juncture, we'll be able to go through spring ball and see what we have at that position, and then assess it at that point. I think we all know there's going to be a lot of really good quality quarterbacks that are going to lose the starting job this spring that are going to go in the portal. And so I think this quarterback stuff will start all over again, and my guess is there'll be a higher number that go in May than there was in December, and I think the quality will be better. Yeah. No, it's just the difference about this, I think, in some ways, is it just never stops. You know what I mean? And the recruiting part, I mean, look, and I think we've always done this to a degree, and I think this is what we've always tried to do to make ourselves a little different than everybody else. But, I mean, look, you got to recruit your own players. You know what I mean? I mean, we got 130 players we're recruiting every day, and we're trying to give them and look, we should have been doing that anyway, because we want those guys to have a good experience here playing football, and they need to have a good experience. And so, as I said earlier, when you have a chance to get to know them, they trust you, you trust them. They know that you have their best interests in mind as you make decisions. Then, you develop a bond and a trust, but that takes time. That takes time to do sometimes. But yeah, we're recruiting our players all the time as well.
Coach, were you happy with the addition of safety? You guys were able to manage?
Yeah. Look, I think we've got when you look at our list here of guys that we've added, I mean, there's a lot of DBs, and there's a lot of length. I think that's the thing. I mean, when you look at the group and you say, well, where are these guys going to play? I mean, I think some of them can play safety. I think some of them can play corner. And so it's a situation where, the speed is there to play corner. Some of these guys are bigger guys. I mean, you see Kyron Chambers, and I mean, Kyron Chambers looks like a linebacker. I mean, he's just put together, and he's a corner. I mean, he's a guy that can really, really run. Now, does he end up being a safety? Does he end up being a nickel? Does he end up being whatever? I mean, I think he's going to, play corner, and we'll kind of see where that goes from there. But when you look at the overall list, I mean, there's a lot of guys on the list that can do a lot of different things, and guys that we're excited about. Mark Perry's another guy that comes to mind. I mean, Mark Perry's probably close to 210 pounds, and ran some pretty impressive track times in high school and at Colorado. And so, where does he play? He projects as a corner based on his speed, but could he play safety? So again, all this group, what you want to do, I think, is DBs, is you want to recruit long guys that are athletic and can run, and then it's like anything. It's like playing receiver. You kind of what the spot looks like at inside and outside receiver. They have some of the same characteristics. They have some different characteristics. It's kind of the same thing at corner, particularly in our style of play, where you want longer guys. You want guys obviously that can run. You want guys that can tackle. And so safeties often look like corners, and corners often look like safeties.
Coach, what's that quarterback room look like in the spring? What's the numbers?
It's a good question. I mean, we'll kind of see. I think we'll end up with probably have 6 quarterbacks in the room, 5 or 6. There could be a position move or two that comes out of that group, but I think we're going to start with 5 or 6.
Going to cornerback, Trey, I think it's like 5'9", 5'10". All the DBs you signed is 6 foot. Is that kind of the baseline requirement for you?
No, not at all. Not at all. No. I mean, look, good football players are good football players, and they all come in different shapes and sizes. We had this conversation in our staff meeting the other day about somebody we're currently recruiting, and it's one of those deals where you turn the tape on Saturday and you watch Tyrann Mathieu make all these plays, and you go, well, that does not look like an NFL safety. You know what I mean? And so Trey's a very, very good football player. There is always room for very, very good football players on the field at a variety of positions. And so, Trey will be a guy that will be featured, prominently in our plans moving forward.
But it's important for you not to get kind of stuck in that box.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
DT needs to be X foot.
Yeah, no, I think, look, we all have measurables that we have in mind. It's always the same, but at the end of the day, good football players trump measurables. You know what I mean? That's always been the most important thing.
Can you talk about the kid from Iowa Western? I can't pronounce it.
Namdi, yeah,
Yeah,
Namdi.
He was 5'11" in high school, now he's 6'3". How did you guys come about him and find him, and how's he doing so far on campus?
Yeah, we stuck him in a stretching machine and added an extra 4 inches. No, Namdi is one of those guys that's a late bloomer. I think when we first started to do some investigative stuff on him. He's a player that Paul found. We watched his high school film. We thought his high school film was okay. He didn't get the kind of offers that he wanted. He went to Iowa Western, grew, got bigger, kind of hit his stride, and is kind of a late bloomer in that regard. Again, he's a player that's with us right now. He's got a lot of talents, length. I mean, he's long, runs well, has good change of direction. He's got a great attitude. When you come from Iowa Western, sometimes there's a transition, coming to TCU, just in terms of, trying to keep up. The standard is probably a little bit different here maybe than it is there, and he's done an unbelievable job at doing that. I mean, he rolled in from day one. He looked like he belonged, and has, competes every day very, very hard in our early morning workouts, and is a guy that I think has a lot of upside. And so, sometimes that happens with players. And, it goes back to what I said earlier. We've all seen the kid that, as the eighth grader, you go, this guy's the best prospect I've ever seen. And then his senior year is the same as he was in the eighth grade. And Namdi, and then you've also seen it just the opposite. These kids are where they come in, they're not very good early in their career. And all of a sudden you look up and they're playing in the NFL. And so, Namdi's one of those kids is a late bloomer, and I think, is going to continue to do nothing but get better.
Sonny, you kind of mentioned it, but the early start to the semester, did that have a negative impact on y'all?
Yeah, it wasn't the easiest thing in the world. It's interesting, some of these guys, and I don't really know how this works. This is something I think would be good for, maybe you guys could find the answer for me. But like some of these guys that are in the portal are just announcing schools. Well, I mean, we're 3.5 weeks into class. My question is, where are they going to go to school where you just show up 3 weeks late? I mean, I don't know where that school is. I've never worked at that school. But evidently that school exists, because that's kind of what's happening. Yeah, for us, I mean, it was a little bit of an inconvenience, and probably, certainly I know had an impact on some guys that we were on, just that wanted to have some additional time to make their decision. But, the fact that we started early, that's way above my pay grade. It's nothing that we can control. It's like anything else. It's out of our hands, and so we're not going to worry about it. We're going to make the most of the situation, and I think it's like everything else. I think in some ways it probably helped us. It helped us, kind of force some guys' hands and just say, hey, look, if this is what you want to do, you can't take any more trips. You got to jump on now. And so, just like anything else, it probably hurt us in some ways and helped us in some ways.
We'll go a couple more questions if you have them.
Coach, now that you've been in this role for a handful of months, what's something that you know now about TCU that maybe you didn't know before you came in?
That's a good question. I'd been here for a year, so I had a little bit probably more knowledge about the overall university, maybe, and kind of situation here, as you normally would. I just had been here before, and so, but I think it's like anything else. Like I said earlier, TCU sells with young people. I mean, there was a lot of kids that we got into the process recruiting that said, TCU was my dream school growing up, and I'd been at other institutions, even going back to my time at Navarro Junior College, where a guy might tell you that, and I'm thinking, I don't know that Navarro was really your dream school growing up, and so you've got to kind of sort through what's real and what's not, but there's a lot of kids that grew up TCU fans, and it goes back to, the success that this program has had in the past, and the tradition of TCU football, and a lot of these kids were growing up when, this program was in the top 10 year in, year out. And so a lot of these guys saw that, kind of grew up during that era, and certainly remember that. And so, and we're TCU fans. And when those guys grow up and they're a fan of your university, that certainly helps you when it comes to recruiting. And so I think that's, the power of TCU, I think is I knew it was big. I think it's bigger than I thought it was. I think when we get kids on campus and they come visit, we have great infrastructure here, great facilities. They get to see a lot of really nice things, which is nice and shiny, and young people like to see that. But I think that's the one thing. I think the second thing is just the overall enthusiasm for the university. From the people in Fort Worth and from the fan base. It's fun to go to basketball games and see that. It's fun to hear people talk about how excited they are about baseball, and a national championship coming back, and to TCU in baseball. Just put a little pressure on your coach over there. But, I think people are just excited about this university, and there's a tremendous amount of pride in the community when it comes to TCU, whether it's baseball, basketball, football, whatever the case may be. People are invested. And I think, again, I knew that to a degree, but I think the longer I'm here, the more and more obvious that becomes.
Final question, if you have it. Thanks, Coach.
Okay, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Let's see, we started last Friday, so it's been good. Obviously we got poor weather coming in. So we're heading over to Globe Life Thursday, Friday, Saturday, which will be nice. So we'll get indoors and not skip a beat. It's gone good. Challenged them on Sunday. Sunday's always a day where it's attitude wins, especially after a long weekend, right? You play a game on Friday, you play a game on Saturday. Sunday's always an attitude day. So you're either trying to sweep a series, not get swept, or try to win a series on a Sunday. And so I challenged them on Sunday. Halfway through the practice, I thought it was going very average halfway through the practice, and kind of reiterated what my thoughts were for what Sunday means to a season. And so I thought they rebounded well on Sunday. We had a workout yesterday, and then obviously today with the rain and the forecast coming in, we'll be a little bit more indoors today, but we won't skip a beat Thursday through Sunday.
Kirk, what have you found now that you're in the job as the head man that you didn't realize would take up as much of your time, or would have to spend time on that maybe you didn't realize?
Yeah, probably everything. Like, I can't wait to get on the baseball field a lot of days, right? Because all the office stuff in terms of, everything non-baseball related, really. You're in charge of 40 young men and your support staff. So, you're looking at 75 people that you're in charge of, and to make sure that it's being run the way you want it to be ran, and for people to be, trying to excel at their highest level. I think, it's instead of having 3 kids back home, and now I have 40, right? In terms of making sure the baseball stuff I'm not worried about, right? We get on the field and that's kind of comes second nature, but it's everything off the field, making sure that we're, in the right classes, that we're taking care of the classroom, off the field, all the different things in terms of pulling you away from maybe the coaching side of it. I think that's the biggest difference, is just, probably all the other hours in the day where you're spending time on things not baseball related, which I found enjoyment in some of it. Some of it I'm like, oh. Sometimes that recruiting coordinator and pitching coach job looks pretty good sometimes when you're dealing with some of the other stuff.
Coach Dykes was just talking football-wise about all the transfers he, brought in. You guys, I think, have 4 graduate transfers. How have they looked, and how important is that, just across the board, regardless of sport?
Yeah, they've been huge. You got, like you said, we have 4 guys from 4 really good universities. Brett Walker, he started at Oregon last year on Sundays. He's been a big part of their program prior to coming here, so he'll slate into one of those starting roles for us. Tommy Vale came from Notre Dame and has been a reliable bullpen arm for them, so we're looking for him to do the same here. Michael Petrie, a guy from University of Washington, that's going to challenge Curtis Byrne and our other guys for the starting catching role. And then you have Caleb Bolden from Arkansas, that's kind of our Charles King, if you will, in terms of the Swiss Army knife, can do anything in any role. So you have 4 guys that have come from 4 Power 5 conferences that have been there and have done that. So when you're kind of building your team, you rely on them a little bit more than, say, a guy that from a junior college or a high school player, just because you know they have a little bit more of a track record at this level. So going forward, we're going to save probably a scholarship and a couple roster spots every summer so that we can go out and identify the right grad transfers for our program. And those 4 guys, the greatest thing about them, besides the baseball stuff, is they've come into our program and our culture and have fit in perfectly. You know, academically, I think 2 of those 3 guys were 4.0s, just phenomenal. The other 2 were 3.0 and higher. So phenomenal students, phenomenal young men are going to fit seamlessly in our program and play a big role. So we're going to recruit the portal pretty hard every year.
Coach, you talked about them fitting in your culture. I know you're new to the program, but as now the head guy, what's that been like for you building your own culture?
Yeah, it's pretty similar to the previous head coach in terms of, you know, we've had a lot of guys. Obviously, I've been here for 10 years. And, you know, if you look back 10 years ago or 15 years ago, it's been the same culture. And so we've continued to add to that. We've continued to, you know, hit home on those, you know, 3 areas: selfless, excellence, and energy, right? Because that's an all-encompassing deal for a program. And it's easy to say and just say it in the first team meeting and then not live it. But the great thing is we have so many kids that have been here for a while and they pass it down year to year. So it starts at the top, but then it also just trickles down to your returning players. And, you know, we had a lot of the professors and head department of chairs at the baseball field last night for an event. And the common theme was our players are a pleasure to have in the classroom. You know, and I think that it sets the tone from when the older guys show the younger guys what it's like. So culture is a buzzword. You want to have it, but you have to live it every day. And so I think that's the great thing about our program is that everybody involved really hasn't skipped a beat. And we've added little things here and there to what we'd like to have with our program, but for the most part, it really hasn't changed a bunch.
Coach, you talked about grad transfers, but on the other side of the coin, you have a pretty highly rated freshman class
Yep.
coming in. Who in that group has started to stand out, and who are you really looking forward to?
You know, we've had a lot of we've had a lot of injuries from the pitching side of it from that freshman class, which is disappointing. Really, they came in with it. We had 3 guys that haven't thrown a competitive pitch since they've got on campus, which is disappointing, and a couple guys that are working their way back. So, but from the position player side, I'm very encouraged. You know, I think it was 2014 and 15 when we started our role, when we had, you know, the Lucan Baker and Josh Watson, freshman All-Americans. And then I think it was actually Connor Wanhanen, Lucan Baker, Josh Watson, and you had 3 or 4 position player guys that were freshman All-Americans in consecutive years, right? So you have that group of kids that are going to be together for 2 or 3 years, 2 or 3 seasons. And I feel like that's what we're building right now. Our sophomore class played a ton last year. The Elijah Nunez, Luke Boyers, Braden Taylors, they played a ton last year. And so now you bring in another position class, you know, the David Bishops, who could play third base, but obviously Braden Taylor's there. We're going to probably play him a lot at first base. He's a guy that's really opened our eyes in terms of getting a ton of playing time. You know, the Hunter Toplanskis, Logan Maxwell, an outfielder from Ohio that's really challenging our outfield. It's going to be really hard for us to keep him out of the lineup. So you have, you know, that kind of nucleus of young freshman position players to go along with our sophomores. We're really excited about this year, but then also building from a position player standpoint of next year as well. So now we just got to have, you know, we have an older group on the mound. So that's not to say we're not going to use some of those freshman arms. We need to get some of those guys healthy, but we're going to bring probably those freshman arms a little bit slower because of the opportunities the older guys are going to take.
Because you have those older guys, does that maybe help you take more time with these young guys to get them right and fully healthy?
Yeah, I think so. You know, I think we're going to take our time regardless because it's kind of a marathon. It's not a race, especially we want to be the best that we can be at the end of the season. And we don't want to rush anybody back, so we're taking our time with some guys. And but what the great thing is Cam Brown and Riley Cornelio, 2 guys that have had a little bit of run in their first couple years at TCU on the mound, have really taken a step forward over the summer and then into the fall, and then have brought it this spring. So we're really excited for those 2 guys in terms of kind of a coming out party for them in terms of what they're doing right now. And obviously Austin Kroeb, like we talked about, Brett Walker, Marcelo Perret. We have a ton of guys, ton of innings and a ton of versatility with our pitching staff that I think will be fun to be able to kind of, figure out what the best possible rotation is, what the best possible middle inning guys, late inning guys. But there's a ton of versatility that we can have a lot of guys do a lot of different things, which will be fun, but it'll also be hard in terms of making sure we got the right guy in at the right time.
What led to those young guys in their situation, those young pitchers? Is it a trend that you're seeing? Are they throwing too much in select
Yeah.
ball leading into it? Is it taking too long into fall with Jupiter? What is it?
I think it's everything that you said. I think, a lot of the guys that we're seeing that have some of these injuries are local, warm weather areas where you can play baseball year round. And a lot of times we always tell them, let's play other sports. So you put the baseball down. And, at some point, you can try and do everything you can possibly do, but at some point, if a guy's going to get hurt, a guy's going to get hurt. But if we can try and limit their innings for the most part from their 14 to 18-year-old years, you don't need to throw 100 innings at, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 years old, right? If you play in other sports, you're probably playing, pitching 30, 40 innings a year, and then you're putting the baseball down, playing football, playing basketball, soccer, whatever it may be. And now guys are just throwing harder, sooner. They're stronger. They're training harder. And I think a lot of times these 17, 18, 19-year-old kids, their ligaments, tendons, muscles aren't ready for some of the bulk and the load that they're putting on their bodies. So, we do a phenomenal job once we get them to campus, taking them through a screening with Coach Dakent, Danny Wheat, the Ben Hogan Center, to try and identify some possible things in the future. But a lot of times we get a lot of guys that are coming in, like I said, that are already banged up that, man, they haven't thrown a competitive pitch in the 6 months they've been here. So it's tough. It's really tough because we committed these guys long before they got hurt. And, we've stuck by their side. We haven't taken scholarships back or anything like that. We've been alongside of them trying to get them healthy, and sometimes it's harder to do than it is to say it. So. Yeah, for this year I am. My worry is then for next year, the following year, right? So that's where the grad transfers come in. That's where the junior college player comes in, where you identify throughout, obviously, the fall, but then in the spring and the season of, all right, who do we have coming back? And what are their roles going to be? Are they a starter? Are they a reliever? And then identify, okay, we need to get a couple JUCO pitchers. Or, hey, we need to maybe get 3 or 4 grad transfers to supplement maybe some of the either recruiting misses that we've made in terms of maybe the guy isn't quite good enough, or the injuries where guys might not even be able to toe the rubber, for TCU just because of an injury situation. So, it's always like a 3 or 4 year window when you're looking at your current roster. What's your team? You're looking at this year, but you're also looking at what's next year going to look like. So we're real encouraged from the offensive side. Now it's about trying to get those guys healthy, get them some innings, help them develop, and then also, keep them healthy. So, yeah, the JUCO and the grad transfer we're going to hit pretty hard this offseason.
You mentioned Braden earlier. Just where would you like to see him develop and grow? Obviously, he had a great freshman year.
Yeah, I think everyone always says sophomore slump. I'm not worried about that with Braden. He's a really good hitter in terms of the best hitters can handle the most pitches, right? The more pitches you can handle, the better hitter you're going to be. And Braden does a really good job of that. I think the big thing for him is not trying to do too much. He had a lot of veteran guys around him last year in terms of in the order, where he probably didn't feel like he didn't need to do too much. And that's probably usually what happens in a sophomore year is, okay, I had a freshman year. I need to do better than what I did my freshman year. And we're all about not comparing yourself to what you did last year. It's about today. It's about this year, and not comparing yourself to years past. Take care of today. Be as good as you can today, and try and get better today. And Braden does that as consistently as anybody, and I think that's why, you see the success he's had. He plays a great third base. Could he play shortstop for us? Yes. Could he play second base? Yes. The versatility's off the charts. So he'll play third for us, and I just feel like he just does what he does. Not worried about Braden and his mentality or trying to live up to any expectations. He's just a ball player and loves to play baseball.
Real quick on the NIL.
Absolutely. Anytime you can make it less expensive for a kid that's deciding, do I take money from Major League Baseball, or do I, in most scenarios, do I end up paying to go to college, right? And so anytime that you can kind of supplement that with maybe some NIL opportunities to hang on to a kid, I think is a huge win for college baseball. I think that's why you're seeing college baseball as good as it's been in a long, long time in terms of the players that we're getting, because the MLB draft has been shortened. We're getting more players that might have signed coming to college. So from a baseball perspective, it's as good as it's been. And I think it's going to continue that way just because of, like you said, the NIL money. There's a lot of programs in the country that really value college baseball and have stepped up in a way to help out financially through NIL, which I think can only benefit college baseball and especially TCU. If you look at TCU baseball and the history of our fans showing up and their support and their love for springtime baseball, it's showing up in terms of our guys, being helped out through NIL, and I look forward to it helping us out even more. You bet. All right. Thanks, guys.
What do we got? We've got an off day. I say that, and we're going to lift. We're going to get some shots up, but we wanted to keep it light. Obviously, got back late on Monday night. I guess Tuesday morning, 2:00 or so. So obviously, a great win for us up there at Oklahoma, and on to Kansas State. Proud of our guys, how we're getting better, improving, and proud of how we played, how we handled it. Got off to a good start and finished it off strong. So excited about it. It's a similar situation playing Kansas State as far as beat them in a close game at their place, and like we had with Oklahoma. And so really I continue to reinforce to our guys that, yeah, we beat them, and we need to get a sweep here in this Oklahoma thing. But, we barely beat them, and we only out-rebounded them by one. And so it's got to be more than one in this one, and certainly they responded with that by out-rebounding by 22, and so that'll be our mentality going into Kansas State as well. It was a close win, a good win, but we're a better team now than we were then, and we got to keep building off it. So excited about it, and looking forward to it. We'll get 2 good practices. It's just over at the Blue, the student cafeteria, I guess, and just trying to continue to talk to the students and get our students out and continue to create that fan base post-COVID and getting them out, our students at the game. So continue that great atmosphere that we've had there. It's been unbelievable, and so we're looking forward to it. And looking forward to baseball.
Yes, speaking of the atmosphere, Jamie, is this kind of what you thought you guys could overcome or develop?
Well, I mean, we're breaking a record. I mean, we're probably got too many in there, but that's what we're doing. So yeah, we're in a whole new world. I mean, I wish I could foresee everything when I came here to TCU. I mean, COVID and NIL and transfer portal, and hey, we're adapting, and we're getting students there, and they're loving it. I think really the players are connecting. We got really outgoing kids. We have a couple different events on campus. We had the tree lighting deal, and all our guys were there and engaged and just talking and around students. You can see them engaging with the students after the game, during the game. Damien's very outgoing. Eddie obviously is a shy kid, but we're trying to get him out of his shell. And Mike's very outgoing. Fran's very outgoing. So they all are. I mean, I sensed that early when we got together in June. Like, this is not a team like you've got to, get them going. It's almost like, we just got to keep a steady ship, and because they've got a lot of energy and a very outgoing bunch. So, that's it's great. Again, they are students first, and connecting to the students is part of the experience. We talked about I was talking to Jeremiah today, and we're talking about Desmond Bain, and he's congrats on the Rising Stars. I think that was last night. I think that was announced, but we always talk about him like no student athlete at this place or maybe anywhere got more out of the college experience and connecting with the students and just representing a program, a university. He told the story of we had an employment job fair thing. I think it was career night. I guess career night, the one that we have a number of those events, but career night, and here he was, the last student athlete in the career night, the last one to leave, talking to boosters, and the last one to go. And so, hopefully we can get him a job here this summer through that. Some connections he made. So.
Coach, we haven't really followed up on this. At the time, you expressed some concern because you were worried about, you talked about one of the guys that put on a little weight, you were worried about
Yeah.
how much work. Are you past all that? Do you feel like all that's past you as far as their conditioning and everything?
Yeah. I mean, and I say that, and I was thinking about it today. What should we do as far as conditioning but this, we took, obviously yesterday we had to be off, and then today was a decision we made. But again, we'll do some stuff, but they know their bodies. And then I looked at what we have coming up too. I mean, it's 3 games a week, a couple of the weeks. So this would be the only time we'd have this situation. Kind of always look for that Monday game. That's something we did in the Big East when you had that big Monday, is maybe you have the opportunity for the 2 games. We got the late game. We got the 7 o'clock game on Saturday, so we'll have the shoot around, time to prepare there for Kansas State too as well. So, I feel like I do. I mean, some guys I'm concerned about as far as conditioning or just playing reps, and we'll work with them today that aren't playing as many minutes. But then we have obviously Damian and Mike, the ones who are concerned and with minutes and what they're playing. So it's a pretty good balance what we have right now. I'd like to get their minutes down a little bit less, but not much. It's 30 is the number, and that we're trying to get to.
Coach, with the number of home games that you've got left on the schedule, how important is it to just take care of business at Schulmeyer?
Yeah, I mean, it's something we've come up with short. Obviously, our league's had something to do with that, but you got to win every home game. I mean, I know, and already we've got 2 losses at home, and that has to be the mentality. And there's no excuse to lose a home game. I don't care what they're ranked, and that has to be our mentality. And we got to create that. We got to play well. We got to create that atmosphere, and we've got to just make that an expectation, a standard that. But yeah, we've got a tough road, but we've got home games coming up, as you said, and we've got to play well early, play well late. We've got to kind of set the tone and play to our. I've been telling them and talking about our identity. Accepting or acknowledging and relishing who we are. And, we said we had to be the best defensive team in the league, and we had to be the best rebounding team in the league. And if you're that, you're generally going to be the best in the country, because we're by far the best league in the country. So we've done those things. And, and I don't know if they knew that we could do it, but they're seeing it now, and I think they're really engaged in it and proud of it. And it's something that we want to protect each day. Yeah.
It seems like that to me at least. I don't know. Is it advantageous to have Fran, Mike, and Damian in the lineup at the same time? Mike could kind of fill in
Yeah, we've done that late game situations more with Fran in there, and we probably could do it more, or should be. But I thought Micah did some really good things for us, and Chuck's been good. Too, but I think we have a lot of versatility, and we can go different ways. But I think, I think Kansas is going to do this. Kansas State's going to do the same thing. It's just a lot of teams are kind of playing with that, token pressure in the backcourt, not a full-out trap. Now we've had some traps at the end of games because of our leads, but that's just something that we've done a little bit more too this year, but not to the amount that maybe Oklahoma was doing it light. Texas was effective against us in a number of things. So LSU was doing it. So, I mean, it's just kind of the trend. The good defensive teams, the LSUs, the ones in our leagues have used some, I say token pressure, but, it's just a full court thing. And we've got, we've got to continue across the board to do a better job taking care of the ball. It's obviously our biggest area to improve, and we have improved, and we just got to keep heading in that direction. We've got to get shots up. I mean, it's simple to say. When you're the best offensive rebound team in the country, getting a shot up is a very important thing, and so we got to continue to do that. And and we've been shooting a good percentage too lately. Offense was just a lot better than it was a couple weeks ago, and even at the start of the year. And so I think just having these guys out there playing, I think. As Brian pointed out, I think conditioning-wise, health-wise, we're in the best spot we've been all year. I mean, early in the year we were getting guys hurt in and out, and then the COVID, and now this has been as good a stretch as we had, except for October, September, when things were really I felt really good about where we were at.
Surprised at all after winning against LSU and winning on the road with OU that guys dropped the net rankings from 36 to 40?
I think we went the right way. Yeah. It changed. Like, did we go to 40 today? I mean, we must have lose. A couple teams lost. I know that we had beaten. Yeah. I mean, the margin of victory has a lot of impact on it, I think, and and again, other teams. I know. I think Georgetown lost last night. I think we moved down a couple today. I thought we would because a couple teams we played lost. So some things factor in, but no, it's gone the right way. And I think I talked about it before, where I think this thing is margin of victory is too much of a factor in these things, especially early in the year, and these with less games and the non-conference games, and you're really rewarded for winning by 40 points. And we didn't do that the first 4 games. I mean, that's the thing that's hurt us the most. We weren't at our best. We had obviously issues, and we had a bad loss during that time. But we also didn't win those 3 games by enough of a margin. And when you're played 13, 14, 18, 19 games, it'll have less of an effect. But it's a big factor. And if that's what they wanted, that's what they got.
When you're looking at the down the stretch here, sitting 4-3 in conference, what do you think the target is for getting into tournament?
I mean, you always say 9 for conference games. I mean, this conference is probably puts you in a different boat, but that's what you got to say. That's a guarantee. But we obviously have teams at 8, and this conference is, I think, the strongest top to bottom it's ever been. I don't know the numbers exactly, and of course we got a new formula in the net. So, but as far as the lowest team in a conference, I mean it's pretty high for the lowest team, whoever it is at this point. So, the numbers are ridiculous how good it is, and of course now we're playing each other and we're going down a little bit. Some teams, and that's it speaks to our conference.
When you look at K-State, obviously I think they had a 4-game losing streak, but then
Yeah.
Tech and Texas, and now they're
Right.
kind of reeling again. But I mean, you can't really go without saying you can't really sleep on it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think if I have this right, I'm just going by memory now. I haven't started watching our game, but they lost, I think, 4 in a row, and then they beat Tech. And there, so I mean, just talking about a team that lost 4 close games, if I'm not mistaken. I think all were last possession or really close to that, 3 of them, and then they go and they beat Tech by a pretty good margin. It just shows what type of kids they have. I mean, they've already proven that they ain't backing down, and they're battling. They're old. We played them. They didn't have McQuirl. I think was not at his best and play. And then probably took a little while to get back going again. And then they've got a good veteran starting 5, as does everybody's aim to have. And we know how well they guard and how offensively how much stuff they run. The good news is we have plenty of time to prepare for them and get some things across. So. We'll physically, I think we'll be ready. Mentally, we'll be ready, and we're just looking forward to a great atmosphere and improving upon our last 2.
Coach Pat Forty said that Jim Bay, his conversation with Jim Bay, 500 is 11.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's, I mean, he's a dear friend too, so, you know, I mean, the coach has earned his right, and so I'm not even gonna discuss, him. I'll just speak to what he means to me. I mean, when I became the head coach there, and even when I was an associate head coach, he was just a guy somehow I connected with. I was good friends with their assistants, and just always reached out to him, and he reached out to me and got me involved with Coaches versus Cancer with him and his wife, Julie, and my wife, and got me involved with. I used to joke that I spent my off season going to meetings and listening to Coach Boeheim because he got me involved with Coaches versus Cancer, NABC, which he was, I think, the president at the time. He got me involved in that. Big East meetings. He would tend to USA Basketball. Yes, he was the head of USA Basketball. So I would say my off season was I was an audience for Jim, Coach Boeheim, and but I learned a lot of great things from him too. And he does it his way, and he does it. He doesn't hide from that fact. And but the ultimate thing was I always said to people, you know, he had this. He kind of can be, you know, combative at times, but he definitely cared about college basketball. He's definitely cared about it. I mean, all those things. He's still on the committees. He's still on. I mean, he cares about the game and where it was going and what it was doing and USA Basketball and, you know, so I mean, he didn't have to be doing that stuff and he was always engaged, always on the phone calls. He's on calls right now. I mean, we're on calls. He's on this ad hoc committee we put together with the NABC, and he's, you know, obviously a voice and along with Coach K and Izzo and Cal. This is all the Hall of Famers, and he's you know, he's still right there and giving his opinion, and oftentimes he's right. Oftentimes he's right. It may ruffle some feathers, but oftentimes he's right. So I don't know if that answered your question, but yeah, I have great respect for him.
Anything else, Coach? Good? All right.
Thank you, guys.